The warning came at dawn, Earth time. Admiral Kevin Grant stood in the war room beneath Geneva, watching tactical displays light up with hostile contacts. Hundreds of them. Thousands. The Shekarn Empire had launched a full-scale invasion of Council space. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from 17 Council worlds," his aide reported. "The Shekarn are cutting through their defenses like paper." Kevin had read the classified reports on the Shekarn. A hive mind species, ruthlessly efficient, evolved for conquest. They had destroyed dozens of civilizations over the past millennium. The Council had maintained an uneasy peace with them through diplomacy and distance. That peace had just ended. "Contact Captain Morrison," Kevin ordered. "Tell him to ready the Liberty and every ship we can spare. We're going to war." On the Liberty, Jake received the orders and immediately called his senior staff. Lieutenant Maya Bennett looked at the tactical data and went pale. "Sir, the Council forces are being massacred. The Shekarn have weapons and tactics the Council has never seen. The defensive fleets are barely holding." "Then we give them something the Shekarn have never seen either," Jake said. "Plot a course to the Helix Nebula. That's where the fighting is worst. Maya, send a message to Admiral Grant. Tell him we're moving to assist." "Sir, the Council hasn't officially requested our help," his tactical officer pointed out. Jake smiled grimly. "They will." 8 human warships jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing toward a war that was not theirs, to defend people who had not yet decided if they trusted humanity. Leading them was the Liberty, followed by the carriers Horizon and Defiant, along with 5 destroyer-class vessels. In the fighter bay of the Horizon, Lieutenant Commander Nina Torres ran pre-flight checks on her craft. Around her, pilots prepared their ships with practiced efficiency. They had trained for combat their entire careers, but this was different. This was not a simulation or a patrol. This was real war against an enemy that had never been defeated. "Listen up," Nina addressed her squadron over the comm. "The Shekarn fight as a hive mind. That means perfect coordination, no hesitation, no fear. But it also means they're predictable. They can't adapt like we can. They can't improvise. That's our edge. Commander, what if we're not enough?" a young pilot asked, her voice tight with fear. "Then we buy time for others to get there," Nina said. "Now let's fly." The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light speed into hell. The Helix Nebula was burning. Council ships exploded in silent fireballs. Shekarn vessels, dark and angular like insects carved from obsidian, swarmed through the debris. They were winning. Jake did not hesitate. "All ships, combat formation. Fighters launch. Target the Shekarn command vessels. Let's get their attention." The Liberty's railguns opened fire, spitting metal slugs at near-light speed. The rounds punched through Shekarn shields and armor, ripping ships apart. The Shekarn fleet immediately diverted forces to meet this new threat. In the Council Command Center, safely behind the front lines, Krell watched the human ships engage. He had argued against allowing humans to fight, fearing what they might do, but the Council had been desperate. Now he watched in fascination as the human tactics unfolded. The humans did not fight like any species he had seen. Council ships moved in predictable formations, following doctrine established over centuries. The Shekarn countered this with overwhelming force and perfect coordination. But the humans fought like water, flowing around obstacles, striking from unexpected angles, adapting moment by moment. Nina led her fighter squadron through the Shekarn lines, targeting their engine clusters. Her pilots flew with precision but also with creativity, each one making split-second decisions that the hive mind could not predict. 3 coming in from above, her wingman called. "Braking left." "I've got them," Nina replied, pulling her fighter into a spin that should have been impossible. She fired, destroyed 2 Shekarn fighters, and the third broke off in confusion. The hive mind did not understand how she had moved that way. It was not efficient. It made no tactical sense, but it worked. On the Liberty, Jake coordinated the fleet with Admiral Grant back on Earth. The Shekarn were adapting to human tactics, sending more ships to overwhelm them through numbers. "We need reinforcements," Jake reported. "We're holding, but barely." "More ships are on the way," Kevin replied. "Hold for 6 more hours, 6 hours." Jake looked at his displays. They had already lost the destroyer Valiant. The Horizon was taking heavy fire. His own ship was down to 60% power. 6 hours might as well be 6 years. But then something unexpected happened. Council ships began moving forward, coordinating with the human fleet. They had been watching, learning. A Verdana cruiser moved into formation beside the Liberty, providing covering fire. Click's fighters swarmed around Nina's squadron, their communal mind linking with her tactical network. "They're helping us," Maya said, surprised. "We helped them first," Jake replied. "They're returning the favor." The battle raged for 8 brutal hours. The Shikaran threw everything they had at the combined human and council forces. Ships died on both sides. Good people, human and alien alike, gave their lives to hold the line. In the chaos, something terrible happened. A Shikaran boarding party breached the Liberty's lower decks. Jake sent security teams to repel them, but the fighting was vicious. Hand-to-hand combat in narrow corridors against enemies that felt no pain or fear. Leading one of those security teams was a young soldier named Jake Foster. He had enlisted straight out of high school, following his father's legacy. Now he fought for his life against alien warriors bred for war. The Shikaran did not take prisoners. They killed everything in their path. Jake Foster saw his friends die, saw good people cut down by creatures that did not understand mercy. Rage filled him hot and terrible. He wanted to kill every Shikaran on his ship, but then he heard screaming from a nearby corridor. Council refugees, civilians who had been evacuated from the front lines, were trapped by the fighting. A Click's child separated from its hive wailed in terror. Jake Foster had a choice. He could pursue the Shikaran, get revenge for his fallen comrades, or he could save the civilians. Every second mattered. People were dying either way. He chose the civilians. Abandoning the pursuit, he led his team to the refugees and escorted them to safety. The Shikaran escaped deeper into the ship, but 37 beings, human and alien, lived because of his choice. On the bridge, Jake watched his security feeds and felt something break inside him. Foster had made the right call, but it cost them. The Shikaran saboteurs reached the reactor and damaged it before being killed. The Liberty was dying. "All hands abandon ship," Jake ordered, his voice steady despite everything. "This is not a drill. Get to the escape pods now." Maya grabbed his arm. "Sir, you need to go." "I will." "Make sure everyone else gets off first." The crew evacuated in good order, no panic, no chaos. They had trained for this. On the hangar deck, Council civilians boarded human shuttles. Human crew helped Click's workers into pods. Species that had been strangers weeks ago worked together to survive. Jake was the last to leave the Liberty, watching his ship die with the quiet dignity it deserved. The destroyer Defiant picked him up, and he watched from their bridge as the Liberty's reactor finally exploded, taking a dozen Shikaran ships with it in one final act of defiance. The battle finally ended when reinforcements arrived. The Shikaran, faced with overwhelming numbers, withdrew to regroup. The Council had held, but barely. The cost was staggering. In the aftermath, Jake walked through the medical bays on the station where survivors had been taken. He saw human doctors treating Click's soldiers. He saw Verdana nurses caring for wounded humans. He saw Danny Ross, who had arrived with medical supplies, kneeling beside a dying human pilot, holding her hand as she passed. Danny had seen war before, but this was different. He had watched that young pilot, a woman named Sally, whose last name he never learned, fly into impossible odds to save a council transport. She had succeeded, but her fighter had been hit. Now she died among aliens, far from Earth, far from home. Why did she do it? A Verdana doctor asked Danny softly. Why sacrifice herself for beings she did not know? Danny looked at the doctor with eyes that had seen too much death. Because someone had to. Because it was right. Because that's what humans do. The doctor did not understand, but nodded anyway. Commander Lisa Hayes arrived with the Nightingale, and her medical teams worked for days without rest. The wounded kept coming, human and alien mixed together. There was no segregation in suffering. Pain was universal. Krell walked through the station, observing everything. He saw human soldiers weeping for fallen comrades. He saw them sharing their rations with hungry Clicks. He saw them laugh in the mess halls, trying to find moments of joy in the darkness. He saw them rage at the injustice of war, then go back to their duties anyway. He found Jake sitting alone in an observation deck, staring at the stars. The captain had not slept in 40 hours. You lost your ship, Krell said quietly. I lost more than that, Jake replied. 73 crew members dead. 73 people who trusted me to bring them home. You saved thousands. The line held because humans stood with us. Jake turned to look at the ambassador. His eyes were red, exhausted, haunted. We're good at war, Ambassador. We've had a lot of practice. But every time we fight, the council meeting lasted 6 hours before they reached a decision. Krell stood before the assembly and delivered the verdict to the human delegation via secure channel. His crystalline face showed no emotion, but his voice carried weight. The council has decided to test humanity, he said. We must understand your true nature before offering membership. You will be presented with a scenario. Your response will determine your future among the stars. Dr. Helen Price felt her stomach tighten. What kind of test? One that will reveal whether your compassion is genuine or merely strategic, Krell replied. You will be contacted soon. 3 days later, distress signals flooded the communication networks. A plague had broken out on Theta 7, a mining colony operated by the cliques. Thousands of workers were sick and dying. The colony's medical facilities were overwhelmed. They needed help desperately. Commander Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of the Nightingale, Earth's medical frigate, reading the reports. Her chief medical officer, Dr. Patrick Cole, leaned over her shoulder, his face grave. It's bad, Patrick said. The symptoms suggest a viral hemorrhagic fever. Mortality rate is climbing past 60%. They have maybe 48 hours before the entire colony is dead. Lisa made her decision in seconds. Set course for Theta 7, maximum speed. Commander, her tactical officer interrupted. We haven't been cleared by the council. This could be dangerous. We don't know if the virus can affect humans. Then we'll find out, Lisa said firmly. Those people are dying. We're doctors. We help people. That's not complicated. The Nightingale jumped to faster than light speed, racing across the galaxy toward a colony of aliens they had never met. In the medical bay, Patrick assembled his team of volunteers. Every single person on the ship had raised their hand to help, knowing they might die in the process. Listen up, Patrick addressed the crew. We don't know what we're walking into. This virus could kill us. There's no glory in this, no medals, just sick people who need help. Anyone wants to back out, now's the time. Nobody moved. On Earth, in a small apartment in Colorado, Danny Ross watched the news coverage. The veteran soldier had been out of service for 6 months, trying to adjust to civilian life. It was not going well. He still woke up from nightmares, still heard explosions that were not there. But when he saw the footage of the Nightingale departing, something stirred in his chest. Purpose. The thing he had been missing. He called his old army buddy, Sergeant Amy Chen. You watching this? Yeah, Amy replied. Her voice was tight. They're crazy. Going out there to help bugs we don't even know. I'm organizing a supply convoy, Danny said. Medical supplies, food, anything they might need. You in? Amy was silent for a long moment. Danny, these aren't our people. They're sick people. That's enough, another pause. Then fine, I'm in. But only because you asked. Within 12 hours, Danny had organized a relief effort that would have impressed any military logistics officer. Donations poured in from across Earth. Medical supplies, clean water, food, blankets. People wanted to help even if they did not understand why. The Nightingale reached Theta 7 and found hell. The colony was built into the side of an asteroid. Tunnels carved deep into rock. Inside those tunnels, thousands of cliques lay dying. Their insectoid bodies were twisted in pain, their communal mind fractured by suffering. Lisa led her medical team into the colony wearing full hazmat suits. The air was thick with the smell of death and chemicals. Everywhere she looked, cliques workers were collapsed in corridors, mandibles clicking weakly. Set up triage stations, she ordered. Patrick, I need analyses of the virus. We can't treat what we don't understand. The work was brutal. Human doctors moved from patient to patient, trying to stabilize the worst cases while Patrick's lab team worked frantically to understand the alien biology. The virus was like nothing they had encountered. It attacked the clique's nervous system, breaking down the connections that allowed them to function as a hive mind. Watching from hidden sensors throughout the colony, Krell and the council observers took notes. The humans had responded immediately without hesitation. They were exposing themselves to enormous danger for beings they had just learned existed. It was remarkable. It was illogical. But then something happened that changed the test. One of the infected cliques, driven mad by the virus, attacked a human nurse. The creature's sharp limbs slashed through the air, mandibles snapping. Before anyone could react, Security Officer Troy Banks drew his weapon and fired. The cliques collapsed, dead. The medical bay froze. Everyone stared at Troy, at the body, at the weapon still smoking in his hand. Lisa rushed over, her face pale behind her helmet. "Report," she demanded. Troy's hands shook. "It was going to kill her, Commander. I had no choice." Lisa looked at the dead Clix, then at the terrified nurse who had nearly died. "You did the right thing," she said quietly. Then louder, "Everyone back to work. We have patients to save." In the council chambers, the observers erupted into debate. The humans had killed one of the very beings they came to help. What did this mean? Were they truly compassionate? Or were they simply protecting their own? Krell watched the footage again and again. The human Troy had not wanted to kill. His face showed horror at what he had done. But he had not hesitated when the threat appeared. Humans could switch between mercy and violence in an instant. This was what frightened the council most. On Earth, Danny's convoy launched into space, loaded with supplies. Amy sat beside him in the transport ship, checking inventory lists. "Still don't understand why we're doing this," she muttered. "Because it's right," Danny said simply. "We have our own problems down there. Poverty, disease, war. Why help aliens first?" Danny looked at her. "Remember Somalia? When we were pulling people out of that collapsed building?" Amy nodded. "Yeah, remember that kid? The one who bit you while you were trying to save him?" "Little brat," Amy said, but she was smiling slightly. "You could have dropped him. Nobody would have blamed you. But you held on. You got him out. Why?" Amy was quiet for a moment. "Because he was scared. Because he needed help." "Exactly," Danny said. "Same thing here. On Theta 7, the crisis reached its peak. The virus was spreading faster than the humans could treat it. Patrick worked in his lab for 36 hours straight, running simulations, testing compounds. Finally, exhausted and desperate, he found something that worked. A combination of Earth antibiotics and Clix immune boosters seemed to slow the virus. "It's not a cure," he told Lisa, "but it might buy us time to develop one." They began administering the treatment. Slowly, patient by patient, the tide turned. Clix who had been dying began to stabilize. The fever broke. The colony began to breathe again. When Danny's convoy arrived 3 days later, the worst was over. But the supplies were still needed. The colony's resources were exhausted. The humans distributed food, medicine, and clean water. They worked alongside the recovering Clix to repair damaged systems and restore order. Krell visited the colony personally to observe. He walked through the tunnels where humans and Clix worked side by side. He watched human doctors teaching Clix medical staff new techniques. He saw Danny Ross carrying supplies to the deepest parts of the colony, where the weakest patients still recovered. "Why did you come?" Krell asked Danny directly. Danny set down a crate of medical supplies and wiped sweat from his forehead. "Someone needed help. That's reason enough. But one of your people killed a Clix. Does that not concern you?" "Troy saved a life by taking a life," Danny said. "It's a terrible choice. But yeah, sometimes we have to make terrible choices. That doesn't mean we stop helping people." Krell struggled to process this. The humans had come immediately to help strangers. They had risked their lives without hesitation. But they had also killed when threatened. They were exactly as the data suggested, capable of both profound compassion and sudden violence. Back on the Nightingale, Lisa sat in her quarters and cried. The exhaustion, the fear, the weight of command all crashed down on her at once. Patrick found her there, brought her tea, and sat quietly beside her. "We saved them," he said gently. "We also killed one," Lisa replied. "You gave the order. I backed you up. Troy pulled the trigger. We all own that death, but we own the thousands of lives we saved too." Lisa nodded slowly. "Is this what it means to be human? Carrying both?" "I think so," Patrick said. "I think that's exactly what it means." The test was over. The council had their answer. Humans were compassionate. Humans were dangerous. They were both things at once, and neither quality canceled out the other. The question now was whether the galaxy could accept a species so fundamentally contradictory into their carefully ordered civilization. The ships appeared without warning above Earth's moon. They were massive, gleaming like polished crystal under the distant sun. Inside the command center of the Liberty, alarms screamed through every corridor. Captain Jake Morrison gripped the armrest of his chair and stared at the screen showing 12 alien vessels hanging in space like silent judgments. "How many?" he asked, though he had already counted them himself. 12 confirmed, sir," Lieutenant Maya Bennett replied from the communications station. Her fingers moved quickly across her console. "They're not charging weapons?" No aggressive positioning. They're just waiting. Jake had served in the Earth Defense Force for 15 years. He had trained for this moment since he was 23 years old. First contact? The day humanity would meet another intelligent species. Every simulation, every drill, every nightmare had led to this. Yet now that it was happening, he felt strangely calm. Open a channel, he ordered. All frequencies. Let them know we see them. Maya nodded and began broadcasting. The message was simple, transmitted in mathematics and basic physics, the universal languages that any spacefaring species should understand. We are here. We see you. We mean no harm. For 3 long minutes there was only silence. Then the screen flickered and a face appeared. It was not a human face. The being had no skin as humans understood it. Instead, its body seemed to be made of translucent crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Its eyes were deep and dark like pools of shadow in the brightness. When it spoke, the words came through in perfect English, translated by technology far beyond anything Earth had created. I am Ambassador Krell of the Vorath species, the being said. I represent the Galactic Council of Civilized Worlds. We come in peace to greet humanity and welcome you to the greater community. Jake exchanged a glance with Maya. This was it, the moment that would define everything that came after. I am Captain Jake Morrison of Earth, he said, standing straighter. On behalf of humanity, we welcome you. We have many questions. As do we, Krell replied. The ambassador's expression was difficult to read, but something in his tone suggested curiosity, mixed with caution. We have observed your world from a distance. Your species is young, but has accomplished much. We would like to learn more about humanity before extending full contact protocols. Over the next several days, the Vorath delegation established a space station in orbit between Earth and Mars. Human representatives traveled up to meet them, including Dr. Helen Price, Earth's leading expert in anthropology and the closest thing humanity had to a xenoanthropologist, even though she had never met an alien before this week. Helen sat across from Krell in a conference room that had been hastily constructed to accommodate both species. The walls were transparent, showing the curve of Earth below, blue and white and beautiful. Krell had been asking questions for hours, and Helen did her best to answer. Explain war, Krell said suddenly. Your species has engaged in organized violence for thousands of years. Why? Helen took a breath. This was the question she had been dreading. Humans compete for resources, she said carefully. When resources are scarce or when ideologies conflict, sometimes violence erupts. We're not proud of our wars, but they're part of our history. Krell's crystalline form flickered with what might have been confusion. Yet you also have organizations dedicated to helping others. The Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, Peace Corps. These exist alongside your military forces? Yes, Helen confirmed. Humans are capable of both. That is illogical, Krell stated. A species is either predatory or cooperative. Your data suggest you are both simultaneously. This should not be possible, Helen smiled sadly. Welcome to humanity, Ambassador. We've been trying to figure ourselves out for millennia. The Vorath began downloading human history, art, literature, and scientific data. They studied everything from ancient cave paintings to modern medical journals. What they found disturbed them. Humanity had committed genocides and created vaccines. Humans had built concentration camps and written symphonies. They had destroyed ecosystems and then fought desperately to save endangered species. In the council chambers, far from Earth, Krell presented his findings to the assembled representatives of 47 different species. The chamber was enormous, filled with beings of every imaginable shape and form. There were the insectoid cliques, the gaseous ephemera, the plant-based verdana, and dozens more. Humans are an anomaly, Krell explained. Every species we have encountered follows predictable patterns. The cliques are communal and work for the hive. The verdana are peaceful and avoid all conflict. Even the aggressive Shikarn follow clear behavioral rules. But humans? They defy categorization. A clique's representative clicked its mandibles together, the sound translated as speech. Are they dangerous? Yes, Krell admitted. But they are also capable of remarkable kindness. I witnessed their response to a natural disaster during our observation period. A tsunami struck one of their coastal cities. Within hours, humans from other nations were sending aid, rescue workers, medical supplies. They risked their lives to save strangers. Then they are not dangerous? Asked a Verdana delegate, its flower-like head tilting in confusion. That is the problem, Krell said. They are both. I watched recordings of their wars. Terrible violence, destruction on scales that would horrify most of you. But in those same wars, I found stories of soldiers sharing their food with starving children, of enemies showing mercy, of warriors who wept for those they killed. I do not understand this species. Back on the Liberty, Jake and Maya reviewed the day's communications. The Vorath were polite but cautious. They asked endless questions about human nature, ethics, and society. It was clear they were trying to decide something important. "Do you think they'll accept us?" Maya asked quietly. Jake looked out at the stars beyond the viewport. "I don't know. We're probably not what they expected. Is anyone ever what you expect?" He smiled at that. Fair point. A message came through from Earth. The president wanted updates. The United Nations wanted protocols. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. But Jake had no answers. Humanity was being judged by standards they did not fully understand, by beings who had never encountered a species quite like them. That night, unable to sleep, Jake floated in the observation deck and watched Earth turn slowly below. It was a beautiful planet, full of contradictions. Down there, people were being born and dying. They were falling in love and going to war. They were creating art and destroying habitats. They were everything all at once, just like they had always been. He wondered what Krell saw when he looked at Earth. Did the ambassador see the potential for greatness or the seeds of destruction? Could he see that humans were trying, always trying, to be better than they had been? The stars offered no answers. They simply watched, as they had watched humanity's entire history, silent and patient and utterly indifferent to whether one small species would be welcomed into the galactic community or left alone in the darkness. Jake pressed his hand against the cold glass and made a silent promise to his world. Whatever came next, humanity would face it honestly. They would not hide what they were, for better or worse. They were humans caught forever between compassion and chaos, and perhaps that was enough. Perhaps it would have to be. The vote was not unanimous, but it was enough. 41 species voted to accept humanity. 6 abstained. 3 voted against. The decision was made. Humanity would join the galactic community, but not as just another member species. Krell delivered the news personally to the human delegation. His crystalline form seemed to glow brighter than usual as he spoke. The Council recognizes humanity as the guardians of the balance. You will serve as protectors and helpers, warriors and healers. You will respond to crises that require both strength and compassion. You will be the ones we call when the situation demands someone who understands both light and darkness. Dr. Helen Price felt tears in her eyes. "You're trusting us with that responsibility?" "We are trusting you to be what you already are," Krell replied. "We are simply giving you a place to use those qualities for good." Captain Jake Morrison was given command of a joint task force consisting of both human and council ships. His new vessel was not a warship but a hybrid, designed for both combat and humanitarian missions. They named it the Gateway, symbolizing humanity's role as a bridge between different ways of being. His crew was mixed. Humans working alongside Click's engineers, Verdana medical staff and ephemera navigation specialists. Lieutenant Maya Bennett served as his executive officer, managing the complex logistics of an integrated crew. The first mission came quickly. A colony world was hit by natural disasters, massive earthquakes that destroyed cities and left millions stranded. The Gateway was dispatched along with relief ships from several council species. Maya coordinated the rescue efforts while Jake managed the overall operation. Human rescue workers dug through rubble alongside Click's labor teams. Verdana healers worked with human doctors in field hospitals. Ephemera scouts surveyed damage from the air, guiding ground teams to survivors. Lieutenant Commander Nina Torres led the fighter wing, now integrated with council pilots. She spent hours teaching them human tactics, helping them understand that military skill was about more than following doctrine. It was about adapting, improvising, making split-second decisions based on instinct and training. "You think too much," she told a Click's pilot after a training exercise. "Your hive mind wants perfect coordination. But sometimes you need to trust your gut even if it means breaking formation." The Click's pilot struggled with the concept but tried. Slowly, the council pilots began to incorporate human unpredictability into their flying. They became better for it, more versatile, more dangerous to enemies, and more effective at protecting allies. Dr. Patrick Cole established the first interspecies medical academy on a space station orbiting a neutral world. Human doctors taught Council medical staff not just technical procedures, but something harder to quantify: bedside manner. How to comfort a dying patient, how to deliver bad news with compassion, how to see patients as individuals rather than just cases. A Verdana student asked him once, "Why does it matter if we care?" "Our job is to heal bodies, not emotions." Patrick smiled gently. "Because beings are more than just bodies. When you treat someone with compassion, they heal faster. Hope is medicine too. Humans learned that the hard way, through centuries of plague and war and suffering. Let us teach you what we know." Sophie Martin's cultural exchange program flourished. Human art, music, and literature spread through Council space. Aliens discovered Shakespeare and jazz, Van Gogh and science fiction. They were fascinated by human creativity, by the way humans processed their contradictions through art. But Sophie also brought Council culture to Earth. Human children learned cliques harmonics, studied Verdana philosophy, explored ephemera abstract expression. The exchange went both ways, each species learning from the others. Emma, Sophie's daughter, grew up with friends from a dozen different species. To her, it seemed normal that her best friend was a clique named Chick, that her teacher was a Verdana, that the grocery store clerk was human. She was the first generation to grow up truly galactic, and she would not be the last. But not everyone accepted humanity's new role. A faction within the Council, led by a paranoid Vorath named Seln, believed humans were too dangerous to trust. They campaigned to have humanity expelled, arguing that the chaos humans brought would eventually destroy the carefully maintained galactic peace. Seln gathered followers among the more conservative species, those who valued stability above all else. He pointed to human history as evidence of inherent violence. He showed footage of human wars, human cruelty, human darkness. He asked the Council if they truly wanted such beings among them. The movement gained strength after a human merchant was caught smuggling illegal weapons to a border world. Seln used this as proof that humans could not be trusted, that their capacity for violence made them fundamentally dangerous. Commander Lisa Hayes was assigned to investigate the smuggling ring. What she found was more complex than a simple crime. The weapons were being sent to a colony that was under threat from pirates. The local government had requested help from the Council, but bureaucracy had delayed any response. The human smuggler, a man named Carl Peters, had decided to help anyway, even if it meant breaking the law. "They were dying," Carl said when Lisa arrested him. "The Council was doing nothing. So I did something." "You broke the law," Lisa replied. "Your intentions don't change that." "I know," Carl said quietly. "But I'd do it again. Sometimes the rules are wrong." Lisa struggled with the case. Carl had broken laws designed to prevent arms trafficking, but he had done so to save lives. It was the kind of moral complexity that drove other species to frustration, but felt utterly natural to humans. Then Seln made his move. His followers sabotaged a human relief mission to a disaster zone, causing explosions that killed 17 humans and 32 Council civilians. The attack was designed to look like human incompetence, to prove that humans brought chaos wherever they went, but the evidence was found. Seln was exposed as a terrorist, a being so afraid of human unpredictability that he had committed the very violence he claimed to oppose. He was arrested and brought before the Council for trial. This was the moment that would define everything. Seln had killed humans. Under Council law, Lisa Hayes, as the senior human military officer on the station, had the right to determine his punishment. Many humans wanted him executed. He had murdered innocents, targeted civilians, committed terrorism. Lisa stood before the Council and made her decision. Seln will face trial under Council law. He will be judged fairly, given the opportunity to defend himself, and sentenced according to established legal precedents. Justice, not revenge. The chamber erupted in debate. Some humans were furious, feeling she had betrayed the dead. Some Council members were surprised that she had not exercised her right to summary execution. Everyone had expected something different, but Lisa held firm. If we execute him without trial, we prove his point. We show that humans respond to violence with more violence, that we're ruled by our emotions rather than our principles. But if we give him justice, real justice, we prove we're more than our worst impulses. Amy Chen, watching from the gallery, felt pride and pain. She thought of Danny Ross, who had died helping aliens he barely knew. She thought of all the humans who had sacrificed to prove their worth, and she understood what Lisa was doing. "We're not just representing ourselves," Amy said to the human observers around her. "We're representing an idea. The idea that beings can be violent and still choose peace, that we can have the capacity for revenge and still choose justice. That's what makes us guardians of the balance." Seln was tried and convicted. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, a punishment that allowed him to live but removed his ability to harm others. The humans accepted the verdict, even those who had wanted harsher punishment. In the aftermath, support for humanity actually grew. Council species saw that humans could be trusted to control their violent impulses, that their justice system was more than just organized revenge. The faction that had opposed humanity lost most of its support. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the gateway, preparing for a new mission. A distress call had come from a remote system, where a natural disaster threatened both human and alien colonists. The gateway would respond, as it always did, with medical teams and security forces with relief supplies and military protection. Maya stood beside him, reviewing the mission parameters. "It's a big galaxy, sir. Lots of places that need help." "Then we'd better get started," Jake replied. Krell visited the gateway before it departed. The Vorath ambassador had become a friend to humanity, perhaps the first true friend humans had made among the stars. He found Jake in the observation deck looking at Earth through the viewport. "You are thinking about home," Krell observed. "Always," Jake admitted. "Wondering if we're doing the right thing, if we're good enough to be what you need us to be." Krell's crystalline form pulsed with what Jake had learned to recognize as amusement. "You are exactly what we need you to be, imperfect, questioning, trying despite doubt. That is the human condition, is it not? To be caught between compassion and chaos. And to choose compassion anyway, even when it is hard. Even when it costs us everything," Jake agreed. "Especially then," Krell said. "That is what makes your compassion meaningful. Because it is a choice, made in full knowledge of what it requires." The council chamber had never been so full. Representatives from every member species crowded into the Great Hall, along with observers, advisors, and journalists. Today, humanity would address the entire galactic community. Today, the council would decide if humans deserved a place among the stars. Dr. Helen Price stood at the center of the chamber, feeling very small. Behind her stood Sergeant Amy Chen, Commander Lisa Hayes, and Sophie Martin, a civilian volunteer who had organized refugee relief efforts during the war. They were supposed to represent all of humanity. It seemed like an impossible task. Krell opened the session with formal words, but Helen barely heard them. She was thinking about what she would say, how she could possibly explain the human condition to beings who had never experienced it. "Dr. Price," Krell said, and suddenly all eyes were on her. "The Council has observed humanity for several months now. We have seen your compassion and your violence. We have seen your capacity for both creation and destruction. Before we make our decision, we would hear your explanation. What are humans?" Helen took a deep breath. "We're contradictions," she began simply. "We're a species that evolved on a dangerous planet where cooperation was necessary for survival, but so was competition. We learned to love our tribe and fear outsiders. We developed empathy to bond with each other, but also aggression to protect ourselves." She gestured to the massive screens showing images from Earth, cities and forests, art museums and battlefields, hospitals and weapons factories. "Look at our history. We created the atomic bomb and used it to kill hundreds of thousands. That same knowledge gave us nuclear medicine that saves lives. We fought wars that killed millions. Then we built monuments to remember the dead and swore to do better. We cage animals in zoos, then spend billions trying to save endangered species. We're capable of terrible cruelty and incredible kindness, sometimes in the same person, sometimes in the same day." A clique's representative clicked forward. "This duality troubles us. How can we trust a species that cannot even trust itself?" Amy Chen stepped forward, her military bearing sharp and clear. "You can't trust us to be predictable, but you can trust us to care. I fought in 3 wars before I ever saw an alien. I killed people, good people probably, who thought they were doing the right thing. It haunted me. Still does." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "But when Danny Ross asked me to help with the relief convoy to Theta 7, I went. Not because I understood the cliques, not because I thought it would benefit Earth. I went because Danny asked, and because people were suffering, And because even after everything I've done, I still believe in helping. Amy's voice grew stronger. Every human lives with this burden. We know we're capable of evil. We see it in our history, in our news, sometimes in ourselves. But we also know we're capable of good. And we choose every single day which one we want to be. Commander Hayes spoke next. Her voice was calm, professional, but underneath it ran deep emotion. During the Shakarn attack, I lost 16 crew members. 16 people under my command who died doing their duty. I could have ordered the Nightingale to retreat. We're a medical ship, not a warship. No one would have blamed me for pulling back to safety. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various council members. But we stayed. We treated the wounded from both sides. When a Shakarn ship was disabled and venting atmosphere, we rescued their crew even though they had been trying to kill us hours before. Some of my staff questioned that decision. They'd just lost friends to Shakarn weapons. Why save the enemy? Because they were no longer fighting, Lisa continued. Because they were living beings in distress. Because even in war we maintain lines we won't cross. Human soldiers carry weapons and medical kits. We're trained to kill and trained to save lives. That's not a contradiction to us. That's being complete. Finally, Sophie Martin stepped forward. She was not military, not a scientist, just an ordinary woman who had seen aliens in need and decided to help. Her voice shook slightly, but she spoke with conviction. I'm a teacher from Ohio, she said. Before first contact, the most exotic thing I'd seen was a trip to New York. I had no idea aliens existed. But when the refugees started arriving from the war zones, I couldn't just watch. I organized supply drives, housing assistance, language lessons. Other humans joined me. Thousands of us, Sophie smiled softly. We didn't know these beings. Some of them looked scary to us. Some of their customs seemed strange. But they were cold, hungry, afraid. Those are feelings we understand. So we helped. She pulled out a small device and projected an image. It showed a human child and a Clix youngster playing together, sharing toys, laughing in the universal language of children at play. This is my daughter Emma and her friend Chick, Sophie explained. Chick's hive was destroyed in the Shakarn attack. He was alone, traumatized, afraid. Emma shared her toys with him, taught him games, made him feel safe. She's 6 years old and she already understands what some species apparently don't. Suffering is suffering, no matter whose body contains it. A Verdana delegate rose, its flower-like head turning toward Sophie. But human children also fight. Human children can be cruel. We have seen your data on bullying, on child soldiers, on youth violence. Yes, Sophie acknowledged. Human children can be cruel. They can be kind. They can be both. Just like human adults. Just like humanity itself. We don't pretend to be perfect. We're not asking you to see us as saints or heroes. We're asking you to see us as we are. Complicated, contradictory, trying our best. Dr. Price stepped forward again. Let me tell you about Danny Ross. He was a soldier trained to fight. He had seen combat, had killed enemies, had been wounded himself. He came home with scars, visible and invisible. He struggled to adjust to peace. Helen's voice grew soft. But when he saw the crisis at Theta 7, he organized a relief convoy. He gathered supplies, recruited volunteers, led the mission personally. He died there, saving a Clix colony from a secondary infection outbreak. He went into a contaminated area without proper protection because every second mattered. Because people were dying. He saved 47 lives and lost his own. She looked around the chamber, seeing the various reactions. Confusion, wonder, fear, understanding. Danny Ross contained multitudes. He was a warrior and a savior. He had taken lives and he gave his own to save others. If you judge him only by his violence, you miss his compassion. If you judge him only by his heroism, you miss the complexity that made that heroism possible. He was human. He was both things, and he chose in his final moments to be the best version of himself. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Krell spoke, his crystalline form pulsing with thought. We have species in the Council who evolved in peaceful environments. They do not understand violence. We have species who are warriors by nature. They do not understand mercy, but humans understand both. You have lived with contradiction so long that it defines you. Yes, Helen confirmed. We are defined by our choices. Every human wakes up knowing they could cause harm or offer help. We carry both capacities constantly. That awareness, that burden, that choice is what makes us human. A council member from the gaseous ephemera species drifted forward, its translated voice echoing through the chamber. This makes you unpredictable, dangerous. How can we build a civilization with beings who might turn violent at any moment? Amy Chen answered, her voice hard. You already have. The Shakaran are predictable. They're always violent. They're always a threat. Is that better? At least with humans, you know we'll fight to protect those who can't protect themselves. Lisa Hayes added, We're not asking for blind trust. We know we have to earn it. But we've shown you who we are. We came when you called. We bled alongside you. We grieved your dead and shared your victories. We're not perfect, but we're trying. Isn't that worth something? Sophie spoke last, her voice gentle but firm. My daughter asked me why some of the council species are afraid of us. I told her that we're different, and different can be scary. But I also told her that being different means we have something unique to offer. We understand darkness and light. We know what it costs to choose kindness when violence would be easier. We know what it means to fight for something beyond ourselves. She looked at Krell directly. You tested us, we passed. We showed compassion at Theta 7. We showed courage against the Shakern. We showed mercy to enemies and loyalty to friends. We showed you everything we are, the good and the terrible. Now you have to decide if that's enough. The council deliberated for 3 days. During that time, humans waited anxiously. On Earth, people watched the news, hoping for acceptance. On ships and stations throughout the galaxy, human crews worked alongside council members, building relationships that had started in crisis. Jake Morrison, now commanding the destroyer Defiant while the Liberty was being rebuilt, sat with Krell in a quiet observation deck. What will they decide? Jake asked. Krell's crystalline form flickered, a sign of deep thought. I do not know. You terrify many of them, but you also inspire hope in others. You are proof that a species can be complex and still be good. We're not always good, Jake reminded him. No, Krell agreed, but you try to be. In the end, perhaps that is what matters most.